Hello, high school football fans. I'm Joe Medley from East Alabama Sports Today here at Oxford High School, continuing the series of campus visits where we go around Calhoun County to all the football playing schools and have an interview with the coach and just talk about high school football with the season just about here. And we've got a fabulous backdrop here in the Champion Sports Complex. The Knights of Oxford football watching over us in those state championship trophies look nice, don't
they? They do.
And while we're on that, we were talking about this before we came on camera, but there's a new home jersey this year. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so we actually made it a little more traditional and I guess maybe basic looking than what it has been in the past. Basically, there used to be a little bit of white trim on there around the numbers and some on the sleeves, and we basically took that out and made it all black and all gold.
Cleaner the better.
That's right.
We're uniform traditionalists here, aren't we?
Correct.
And none of those gosh awful jersey side panels and all that trendy stuff that was going around for a while.
None of that. Oxford,
of course, comes off of a 13-1 season where they made it to the Class 6A semifinals. Lots of new folks in positions this year. A lot of seniors that names you'd recognize like Jalen Taylor and Keenan Britt, but a lot of guys, new starters at certain positions. And just you've had a few days on the field with these guys. What's it looking like so far?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're it's like an issue right now is consistency. You know, with some of these guys that are going to be new into some of the starting spots for this year. You know, we have some days where I feel like we look like we have a chance to be pretty good, and some days where we don't quite look as good as others. You know, looking just in general, there is kind of a mix of those higher. More prominent name type guys that have had some postseason accolades in the last few years, mixed in with really a lot of sophomores and a lot of new starters. So, you know, when you have inexperienced guys out there, there's going to be some ups and downs, and you know, we just hope that over the next several weeks that we can build a lot of consistency in our play day to day.
We addressed this at Media Day last week, but for those who didn't see that, might be seeing this. Keenan Britt moving from defensive end to linebacker, I think, is an intriguing thing. It gives him some more playmaking flexibility, doesn't it?
It really does. You know, I mean, with him playing the position he was playing defensive end, I mean, basically he threatened two gaps on any given play. And with what we're doing with him now, I mean, he can really threaten all the way across the line of scrimmage. You know, probably four gaps at a time. You know, that he can attack from that one alignment that he's at right now. So. You know, he's obviously going to be using a lot of the same skill set that he did in the past of rushing the passer some, but that's just going to be kind of part of it now. I mean, now he can do some things on the second level that he's really never shown that he can do on a Friday night. And so, you know, we're really excited about that. I think it's a way for him to maximize his skill set and, you know, for us to be more versatile on the defensive side.
Also has the happy impact of kind of giving him a way to kind of move into the thing he's going to be doing at the next level in South Carolina.
For sure, yeah. He's heavily recruited as mostly an inside linebacker, and that's what he'll be for us. So, you know, naturally that'll help his development and make him more ready to play when he gets on campus in South Carolina.
Jalen Taylor, wide receiver, another player that's very familiar to fans around here, committed to Marshall recently. Just how has he progressed and you know, we'll get to the quarterback thing, but how is having a receiver like him help a new quarterback?
Well, I mean, Jalen is a super steady player in every sense of the word. Obviously, he does a lot of flashy things as well, but he's always going to be where he needs to be as a receiver. There's a lot of consistency in his routes and a lot of consistency in his leadership of the team as well. And you know that's one. If I was playing quarterback, I would love the fact that he's proven what he can do on a Friday night, and that he can really help kind of steady the ship a little bit from the standpoint of he's been out there for a lot of snaps. And he's not really just a receiver. You know, he helps us out in the return game. He also goes over and plays corner, so he affects all three aspects of the game over the course of the game. You know, the corner part is really kind of as needed. You know, that's a situational type thing for him. But he can do a lot of things. He was, you know, a 1,400-yard plus receiver last year, led 6A receiving yards, and really has emerged beyond the stuff you see on the field, just his leadership qualities. You know, he leads in a very positive way without having to be the loudest guy out there, and really just sets a great example for everybody else on the team.
Sounds like the Swiss Army knife like they had with DK Wilson last year.
It is, yeah, it is, and he's gotten some snaps at quarterback this summer as well. So and he's a guy that can do a lot of things, and when he goes back there behind center, he's not just a runner. I mean, he can throw as well. So I mean, he's a well-rounded athlete, and those kind of guys don't come around very often, and so we're just trying to make the most out of what we can with it.
We mentioned the quarterback, same last name, just different first name this year.
Yep.
Maddox Mims, younger brother to Mason Mims, who graduated and is now working his way up the depth chart at the University of Louisville. Maddox, where does he compare to where Mason was coming in as a sophomore, first-year starter?
You can't really compare the two, and that's not saying one is good and one's bad. It's just they're so vastly different with the way they play the game. The skill sets are not the same at all. It's a whole different style of play. Whereas Mason's strengths were, they can both throw the ball really well. That part is very similar. Mason was, really a high-level decision maker in that, you could kind of layer decisions upon other decisions within each play from a very early age. When we first got here as a sophomore, he was already kind of doing that. Maddox his strengths lie a little bit more in the movement part of the game. Maybe extending plays with his legs. He's got great agility and quickness, and he does have good arm strength too. It just will kind of be leaning into probably different parts of the offense a little bit more with him than we were with Mason. Both those guys are really good players, but it's hard to compare the two because just the style is so much different.
Give you more of a zone read look with Caleb Wynn.
Yeah, you definitely can. You definitely can. Whereas, with Mason, in 3 years, I don't know if we ever called a quarterback run, and there were very few times. He got really good at extending plays to throw, and Maddox is just doing it in a little different kind of way.
Of course, Mason's up there playing for a coach right now that's developing those pocket passer kind of quarterbacks that go into the next level, like Tyler Shuck.
Yep.
It looks like he's going to be doing well for the Saints this year.
Absolutely.
Tell us about some of the new guys that we're going to see stepping up in some of these positions where you had. There were several all-county players that graduated.
Sure.
Tell us about some of the new guys that we might know better.
Well, up front on the offensive line, we really only returned one starter up there in Bryson Sanderson. He was a guy that really emerged over last year and started to get a lot of recruiting traction in the last few months. You got guys like Jackson Elston that'll be really a full-time starter for the first time on the offensive line. He played in a handful of games last year. I don't know if he ever started a game, and he was the first guy to run out there, but he played in a handful of games. But he's a great big body, and he's gotten some action on the recruiting trail here lately as well. So he'll be kind of starting opposite of Bryson at that other tackle spot. We'll actually be a little bigger offensive line wise than we have since I've been here anyway. You got Jacquez Goodman will be getting started at center. He was predominantly a defensive player last year. He'll be one of those sophomores that's going to be asked to play a big role for us. Then on the offensive side, he's not a new guy, but Caleb Wynn obviously will be a prominent piece of the puzzle back there at running back. On the defensive side, a lot of the are kind of in the box players are back from last year. There's a lot of familiar faces. Guys like Josh Stack, who played on both sides of the ball last year as a sophomore, will be getting started one of the defensive end spots. He's been super productive all through preseason camp. Aiden Noyola, it's new to our football program. This is his first year in the football program. This year was with the baseball team last year. Yes, yeah, he'll be getting started the inside linebacker as well, and they're beside Keenan, and he's just a really good football player. Really kind of an unknown commodity until we got to see him in action in the last month or so. But super physical, moves really well in the box in there, and he's got a super bright future ahead of him. Terrion Russell got a lot of minutes for us last year as a D lineman, kind of in a more of a sometimes starter, sometimes backup role. He's had a really good camp so far at the defensive line spot. And then really, the defensive backfield, that's going to be, we got some returners at safety back there with Kamari English and Marcus Lawler. And then the corner spot is where we're kind of trying to, figure out what our best alignment is. I mean, Jalen Robinson, looks like he's going to be playing one of those corner spots. And then we got a couple of guys kind of fighting it out for the other one. So, we still have some questions to be answered here in the next few practices this week. And then, next week we do have a Jamboree preseason game against Oak Mountain, which will be a good test. We'll go there. And then, we have 2 more weeks before we do it for real out here on a Friday night.
Looking at your region this year, you won Class 6A Region 6 last year. And, is it the usual suspects this year? Is it you guys and Mountain Brook and Clay Chalkville, kind of the teams to watch?
I would think the 4 teams that were in the playoff out of this region last year would probably be the 4 that most people would think would be in the same boat this year. But you still have Pinson Valley has won 3 state championships in the last 10-ish years. They're fighting for that for a spot in there as well. It's a really good region. It's tough every week in, week out. Clay is always going to be a team that contends for a state championship. I'm sure that'll be no different this year. Mountain Brook is always super well prepared, and they have really good football players. Mountain Brook probably gets shorted a little bit on having as good of players as they do. I think they get the well coached moniker, which they are. But a lot of times, well coached means your players aren't very good. They just do the right stuff. And Mountain Brook really has really good football players all across the field, in addition to good coaches. So, and Clay does too. Clay's well coached as well, in addition to having good players. So, there's challenges that are presented to you week in and week out in this region in every aspect of the game.
Of course, those games with Mountain Brook and Oxford every year seem to be legendary games.
Yes,
absolutely. Last year was no different. With the comeback and the 2-point conversion, you get them home this year.
Correct. Yep, that'll be. I'm sure that game will go a long way in determining who gets to be in the playoffs and host the first round game and all that. There'll be really big repercussions for that game.
And that's earlier in the year, and then Clay Chalkville comes later. I remember last year that was the clinching game.
Correct. I believe off the top of my head, I think Mountain Brook is our 5th game of the year, and Clay is the 8th, if I have that correct.
So that could end up being the region championship game, depending on how that game with Mountain Brook goes.
Sure. Yep, that is correct.
Every time I think of that Clay Chalkville game, I think of, we talked about Jalen Taylor, his spectacular plays, the one-handed catch.
He had 2 good catches in that game that were super big swings of momentum.
Well, how do you feel about the state of the program? You're going into your 5th season here. You've kind of been through. Is it fair to say a roster reset?
Oh yeah,
and make kind of getting into another one now. Just how do you feel like things are just kind of reloading here?
Well, I hope reloading is a good term for it. So, we lost a lot of really good football players off of last year's roster, but we got a lot of good football players back, and and there's some that will be stepped into roles that have super bright futures. The class, this particular roster, we don't have a very big senior class. This class has never really been that big, coming up from when they were. I guess these guys were all in 8th grade when I first got here, and there was about 10 to 12 of them then, and there's about 10 to 12 of them now. So you kind of worry about that a little bit. Just the size of your senior class, usually does have some kind of correlation with at least the consistency of your team throughout the year. But there are some really good leaders in there. Overall, I definitely like the trend of the program. I feel like now our players fully understand why we ask them to do all the things that we do. They understand the demands of it, and it's a tough program. This is I don't want to say 365-day-a-year program, but it's pretty close to that. You probably knock about 3 weeks off of that, and besides that, we're in here, the majority of the days, working to get better at football. We've been practicing in some form since March now. A lot of guys, people that don't really understand what the calendar looks like for high school football. This is the start of fall camp was last week, but we can start having those 2-hour rule, 2 hours per week, non-padded practices way back before spring break. So there's been a lot leading up to this. But I definitely like the roster that we have. There's other teams in our region and on our schedule and our non-region schedule that also have really good rosters too. So, you know, will that look record-wise like it did last year? I mean, that's kind of remains to be seen, but, you know, we just hope that we're playing our best come November and hopefully into December, you know, and that's kind of why we set up the non-region schedule the way that we do and make it challenging in addition to a super challenging region, so that, you know, we've seen everything that we need to see and we have all our questions answered by the end of October leading into playoffs.
Central Carrollton, the home opener, as I remember, that was a comeback game last year too.
It was. We had several of those last year. Yeah. They were up on us 2 scores early, and we kind of kept going back and forth. We ended up beating them 56-46, but we didn't lead until early fourth quarter, I believe it was. Very good. You know, John S. Walton is committed to Notre Dame as a running back. He had every offer that any running back would want to have, and he chose Notre Dame. They have good quarterback as well. They look a little better in the defensive backfield, in my opinion, than what they were last year. And I mean, they're a really good team that would fit in over here in this 6A chase. I mean, they're 4A in Georgia, but if we were in Georgia, we would likely be in 4A, maybe in 3A, depending on the numbers. So that's a lot of people don't understand that it's not apples to apples when you're comparing classification. So they're a little bit larger than us, but they would be a 6A school if they were in Alabama. So it's a good matchup for us, and I really hope that after this season's over and we redo the schedules moving ahead, that would be one that we can keep on our yearly schedule.
I'd be remiss as we sit here in this grand setting,
Yeah.
Champion Sports Complex, a few years into it, and I'm sitting here remembering the trailer where we used to do this when this thing was under construction.
Yeah.
Is there any way to kind of, to kind of articulate the impact that this has had on the program now that it's been a thing for a couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, it's really, we first moved into this thing the week that the season started in the 23 season, like the Sunday leading into our first game against McAdory that year. And I mean, the change in setting was immediate right there, but I think that, it was really the first time we got to come out of this hallway that we're in and go out on the field on a Friday night that year. I mean, it was really emotional, to be honest with you. Just going from being in the white kind of construction foreman looking trailer over there for me, and our locker room during the construction was a kind of a makeshift room underneath the stadium, and we were holding meetings in hallways and meetings in the corner of the equipment room, and just wherever we could find a place to stick people. Our coaches are all talking over each other through all the meetings. Our weight room was on the far other side of campus. I mean, nothing was convenient. And I mean, I think there's some symbolism, I think, in this thing too. I think that was definitely the under construction kind of part of this version of the program at that time, the version since I've been here anyway. Because that's kind of where we were at that time. And I feel like now, our players understand that because of all these resources that we have right here, there's really no excuses, is what it tells you at the end of the day. I mean, the building is the building, but then the work is the work, right? So both of those things play a huge role in any kind of success that we'll have. But everything is so convenient for our guys now in one spot. I mean, now, we get done in between 7 and 8:20 in the morning, stuff that would probably take us at least double that time under the old kind of setup that we were in for 2 years. So, we're able to, get protein in the guys. We're able to, our school nutrition program helps us with feeding the guys breakfast and lunch when we can and all that. So, I mean, it's really everything that we have in place here enables all of our guys to be the very best player they can be by the time they get out of here. Whether that's a Division I player or if that's a guy that just becomes a really solid high school football player and never puts his helmet on again after he walks off here for the last time. It's different for everybody, but everybody can reach their full potential.
Sam, always a pleasure.
Yes, sir.
Look forward to seeing what your team can do this year. Thank you all for joining us for today's episode of Talkin Football, and tomorrow we move on to Wellborn as we move our way south and north in Calhoun County and visit all the football playing schools. Thanks for joining us, everybody.